Hare Krishna. I guess we are live. So again we'll start with the pranam mantras. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalaakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Srimate Swayam Rupa Kadamayan Rati Sarpadandika Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Gurupatakalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamcha Cha Shri Rupam Sagrayatam Sagar Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadhvaitam Savadutam Paridan Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padana Sagan Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitam Cha sorry Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashad Deshatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gauravaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare तप्त कांचन गौरांगे श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. So we'll start with chapter 2 text 1. Yeah, previously we have seen questions by sages, which was in a way to glorify Srimad Bhagavatam, Shri Gurudev and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna Chandra himself. So we'll start with the first canto, second chapter, first shloka. Shri Vyāsadeva iti samprashna samrishto vipranam rao Romaharṣaṇa pratipujya vachastesham pravaktum upachkrame Vyasa said iti thus samprashna perfect inquiries samrichya perfectly satisfied vipranam of the sages there. Romaharṣaṇa, the son of Romaharṣaṇa, namely Ugraśravā, pratipujya, after thinking them, vacha, words, tesham, their, pravaktum, to reply to them, upachkarne, tempted. Translation: Ugraśravā Sūta Gosvāmī, the son of Romaharṣaṇa, being fully satisfied by the perfect questions of the brāhmaṇas, thanked them and thus attempted to reply. Sorry. Purport by his divine grace Prabhupada. The sages of Naimisaranya asked Sūta Gosvāmī 6 questions, and so he is answering them one by one. Let's see the next one. Sūta Uvacha Yam pravarjanatam anupetam apetakrityam dvayapayano viraha katar ajuhava putreti tanmayataya tarvo abhinedu stam sarvabhuta hridayam munimanato asmi. Sūta Gosvāmī Uvacha said, Yam whom pravarajanatam while going away from renounced order of life. Okay. Anupetam without being reformed by the sacred thread. Pita, not undergoing ceremonies. Krityam, prescribed duties. Dvapane, Vyāsadeva, viraha, separation. Kataraha, being afraid of. Ajuhava, exclaimed. Putra iti, O my son. Tat mayataya, being absorbed in that way. Tarvaha, all the trees. Abhineduha, responded. Tam, unto him. Sarva, all. Bhuta, living entities. Hridayam, heart, Munim, sage, Anantah Asmi, offer obeisances. Translation: Śrīla Sūta Gosvāmī said, "Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto that great sage Śukadeva Gosvāmī, who can enter the hearts of all." Sorry. when he went away to take up the renounced order of life, sannyāsa, leaving home without undergoing reformation by the sacred thread of the ceremonies observed by the higher castes, his father Vyāsadeva, fearing separation from him, cried out, "O my son, indeed only the trees which were absorbed in the same feelings of separation," echoed in response to the begrieved father. I'll read it again. Śrīla Sūta Gosvāmī said, "Let me offer my respectful obeisance unto that great sage, Śukadeva Gosvāmī, who can enter the hearts of all. When he went away to take up the renounced order of life, leaving home without undergoing reformation by the sacred thread or the ceremonies observed by the higher caste, his father Vyāsadeva, fearing separation from him, cried out, 'O my son, indeed only the trees which were absorbed in the same feelings of separation,' echoed in response to the begrieved father." This is said that, I guess, Sūta Gosvāmī is offering obeisances to the original speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam, Śukadeva Gosvāmī, who spoke whole Srimad Bhagavatam in front of Parikshit Maharaj, and Sūta Gosvāmī was present there. So he is just previously offering obeisances to Śukadeva Gosvāmī and Vyāsadeva, in which he is explaining how he took the renounced order of life, which is sannyāsa, leaving home without undergoing reformation by the sacred thread or the ceremonies observed by the higher caste, his father Vyāsadeva, fearing a separation from him, cried out, "O my son, indeed only the trees which are in the same feelings of separation," echoed in response to the begrieved father of Krishna. Purport by Prabhupada. The institution of Varna and Ashrama prescribes many regulated duties to be observed by its followers. Such duties enjoin that a candidate willing to study the Vedas must approach a bona fide spiritual master and request acceptance as his disciple. The sacred thread is the sign of those who are competent to study the Vedas from the Acharya or the bona fide spiritual master. Sri Śukadeva Gosvāmī did not undergo such purifactory ceremonies because he was a liberated soul from his very birth. Generally, a man is born as an ordinary being, and by the purifactory processes, he is born for the second time. When he sees a new light and seeks direction for spiritual progress, he approaches a spiritual master for instruction in the Vedas. The spiritual master accepts only the sincere inquirer as his disciple and gives him the sacred thread. In this way, a man becomes twice born, or a Dvija. After qualifying as a Dvija, one may study the Vedas. And after becoming well versed in the Vedas, one becomes a Vipra. A Vipra or a qualified brāhmaṇa thus realizes the absolute and makes further progress in spiritual life until he reaches the Vaishnava stage. The Vaishnava stage is the postgraduate status of Brahmana. A progressive Brahmana must necessarily become a Vaishnava. For a Vaishnava is a self-realized learned Brahmana. Śrīla Sūta Gosvāmī was a Vaishnava from the beginning. Therefore, there was no need for him to undergo all the process of Varnashrama institution. Ultimately, the aim of Varnashrama dharma is to turn a crude man into the pure devotee of the Lord, or a Vaishnava. Anyone therefore who becomes a Vaishnava, accepted by the first class Vaishnava or Uttama Adhikari Vaishnava, is already considered a Brahmana, regardless of his birth or past deeds. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted this principle and recognized Srila Haridas Thakur as the Acharya of the holy name. Although Thakur Haridas appeared in the Mohammedan family, in conclusion, Srila Śukadeva Gosvāmī was born a Vaishnava, and therefore Brahmanism was instilled in him. He did not have to undergo any ceremonies. Any low-born person, be a Kirata, Huna, Andhra, Pulinda, Pulkasha, Abhira, Shumba, Yavana, Khasa, or even lower, can be delivered to the highest transcendental position by the mercy of Vaishnava. Srila Śukadeva Gosvāmī was the spiritual master of Śrīla Sūta Gosvāmī, who therefore offers his respectful obeisances unto Srila Śukadeva Gosvāmī before he begins his answer to the questions of the sages at Naimisaranya. So this is a great purport explaining Varnashrama, which is regulated duties to be observed by its followers, which is people have to do after such ceremonies, which is like Brahmin initiation, and you are given. See, there are two stages of becoming a Vaishnava. It is explained over here. That is, it's a Dvija. One may study the Vedas, and after becoming well versed in the Vedas, one become a Vipra. So Dvija is the first stage where you get a Brahmin initiation, and Vipra is the stage where you become a qualified Brahmana, basically Vaishnava. So Vyāsadeva was very much keen that here it is Śrīla Sūta Gosvāmī is offering obeisances to Śukadeva Gosvāmī, as in explaining who is Śukadeva Gosvāmī. And this is also what do we call glory of Gurudev of Śrīla, which is being done by Śrīla Sūta Gosvāmī, that Śukadeva Gosvāmī was born a Vaishnava. He doesn't need to do any kind of initiation or something, and just because of that, here we are getting an explanation of who is a Vaishnava, because anyone can basically misjudge and get a false ego in this yuga, in this Kali Yuga, that I was also a born Vaishnava and I also do not need these kind of things, because I basically I have all the knowledge and stuff. But Śukadeva Gosvāmī was not like that. So he's was a Vaishnava from the beginning. Here you can see there was no need for him to undergo all the process of Varnashrama institution. Ultimately, the aim is to turn a crude man into a pure devotee of the Lord, a Vaishnava. So this is also explained that if Uttama Adhikari or a guru who accepts anyone as their disciple or accept anyone as a Vaishnava, they will be a Vaishnava by default. They don't need to do all the necessities of which is supposed to be done for becoming a Vaishnava. Here it is as Brahmana, regardless of his birth or his past dates. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accept the principle and recognize Srila Haridas Thakur as Harinamacharya. He is the Acharya of holy name. As Haridas Thakur was doing 3 lakh name japa every day, like 22 hours of chanting, and only 2 hours for his basic needs like eating, sleeping, and doing everything other than that. So which is that Haridas Thakur was born in a Mohammedan family. Still Srila Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted Haridas Thakur as a Vaishnava, as a Brahmana. Doesn't matter of his birth, where did he got the birth, what were his past dates and stuff, but still. So Srila Śukadeva Gosvāmī was the spiritual master of Srila Sūta Gosvāmī, who therefore offers Sūta Gosvāmī himself offers his respectful obeisances unto Srila Śukadeva Gosvāmī before he begins his answer to the questions of the sages at Naimisaranya. So we'll move to next one. Iha swanu bhavam akhila shruti sare me ekam adhyatma deepam tiditrishtam tamo andhanam sansarinam karunaya purana guham tam vyas sunu payami gurum muninam. Yaha, he who swa anubhavam, self assimilated, experienced, akhila, all around, shruti, the Vedas, saram, cream, ekam, the only one, adhyatma, transcendental, deepam, torchlight, atitirshyatam, desiring to overcome, tamaha andham, deeply dark material existence, samsarinam, of the materialistic men, karunaya, out of the causeless mercy, aha, said, Purana, supplement to the Vedas, Guhyam, the very confidential, tam, unto him, Vyasa Sunum, the son of Vyāsadeva. Upayami, let me offer my obeisances. Gurum, the spiritual master. Muninam, of the great sages. Translation: let me offer my respectful obeisances unto him, Śuka, the spiritual master of all sages, the son of Vyāsadeva, who, out of his great compassion for those gross materialists who struggle to cross over the darkest regions of material existence, spoke the most confidential supplement to the cream of Vedic knowledge, after having personally assimilated it by experience. Purport by His Divine Grace Swami Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. In his prayer, Śrīla Sūta Gosvāmī practically summarizes the complete introduction of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the natural supplementary commentary on the Vedanta Sutras. The Vedanta Sutras or the Brahma Sutras were compiled by Vyāsadeva with a view to presenting just the cream of Vedic knowledge. Srimad Bhagavatam is the natural commentary on this cream. Śrīla Śukadeva Gosvāmī was a thoroughly realized master on the Vedanta Sutra, and consequently, he also personally realized the commentary, Srimad Bhagavatam. And just to show his boundless mercy upon bewildered materialistic men who want to cross completely over nescience, he recited for the first time his confidential knowledge. There is no point in arguing that a materialistic man can be happy. No materialistic creature, be he the great Brahma or an insignificant ant, can be happy. Everyone tries to make a permanent plan for happiness, but everyone is baffled by the laws of material nature. Therefore, the materialistic world is called the darkest region of the God's creation. Yet the unhappy materialists can get out of it simply by desiring to get out. Unfortunately, they are so foolish that they do not want to escape. Therefore, they are compared to the camel who relishes thorny twigs because he likes the taste of the twigs mixed with the blood. He does not realize that it is his own blood and that his tongue is being cut by the thorns. Similarly to the materialist, his own blood is as sweet as honey, and although he is always harassed by his own material creations, he does not wish to escape. Such materialists are called karmis. Out of hundreds and hundreds of karmis, only a few may feel tired of material engagement and desire to get out of the labyrinth. Such intelligent persons are called jnanis. The Vedanta Sutra is directed to such jnanis, but Śrīla Vyāsadeva, being the incarnation of the Supreme Lord, could foresee the misuse of the Vedanta Sutra by unscrupulous men. And therefore he personally supplemented the Vedanta Sutras with the Bhagavata Purana. It is clearly said that this Bhagavatam is the original commentary on the Brahma Sutras. Śrīla Vyāsadeva also instructed the Bhagavatam to his own son, Śrīla Śukadeva Gosvāmī, who was already at the liberated stage of transcendence. Śrīla Śukadeva realized it personally and then explained it. By the mercy of Śrīla Śukadeva Gosvāmī, the Bhagavad Vedanta Sutra is available for all those sincere souls who want to get out of material existence. Srimad Bhagavatam is the one unrivaled commentary on the Vedanta Sutras. Sripad Shankaracharya intentionally did not touch it because he knew that the natural commentary would be difficult for him to surpass. He wrote his Shariraka Bhasya, and his so-called followers deprecated the Bhagavatam as some new presentation. One should not be misled by such propaganda directed against the Bhagavatam by the Mayavad school. From this introductory sloka, the beginning student should know that Srimad Bhagavatam is the only transcendental literature meant for those who are Paramhamsas and completely freed from the material disease called malice. The Mayavadis are envious of the personality of Godhead despite Sripad Shankaracharya's admissions that Narayana, personal Godhead, is above the material creation. The envious Mayavadi cannot have access to the Bhagavatam, but those who are really anxious to get out of this material existence may take shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam, because it is uttered by the liberated Śrīla Śukadeva Gosvāmī. It is the transcendental torchlight by which one can see perfectly the transcendental absolute truth realized as Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. Here, the glory to Srimad Bhagavatam has been done by Prabhupada. And for everyone to get out of this material existence, they should not go towards any other philosophies or any other like commentaries on other Vedas and Puranas, because they are all to confuse you, and you may not get Bhagavan in this life if you just don't serve unto him. So yeah, just there is also explained that Sripad Shankaracharya intentionally did not touch it because he knew that the natural commentary would be difficult for him to surpass. He wrote his Shariraka Bhasya, and his so-called followers replicated the Bhagavatam as some new representation. It happens when the truth, or basically the original thing, is to be spoken. Many people hide it, but this should not happen eventually. So Narayanam namaskritam naram chaiva narottamam devi saraswati vyasam tato jayamudiyate. Yeah, I have heard the shloka so many times that it was so easy for me to read it. Narayanam namaskritam naram chaiva narottamam devi saraswati vyasam tato jayamudiyate. So sorry, this is such a good shloka that Narayanam, the personality of Godhead, Namakritya, after offering respectful obeisances, Naram cha eva, and Narayana Rishi, Nara Uttamam, the supermost human being, Devim, the goddess, Saraswatim, the mistress of learning, Vyāsadeva, Tata, thereafter, Jayam, all that is meant for the conquering, Udire, be announced. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisance to the personality of God and Narayana and Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Śrīla Vyāsadeva, the author. So this shloka is very much prior to me, as I can say. That Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udireta. Everyone should read the shloka so much so that after they start to read Srimad Bhagavatam. But I just got to know that I should read this every day. So I'll just keep in mind that I have to read 1 to 1.4 every day with the Mangalacharana. So I'll just a second, I'll write it down, and yeah. So purport by Jivangi Swami Śrīla Prabhupada. Sorry. All the Vedic literatures and the Puranas are meant for conquering the darkest region of material existence. The living being is in the state of forgetfulness of his relation with God due to his being overly attracted to material sense gratification from time immemorial. His struggle for existence in the material world is perpetual, and it is not possible for him to get out of it by making plans. If he at all wants to conquer his perpetual struggle for existence, he must re-establish his eternal relation with God, and one who wants to adopt such remedial measures must take shelter of literature such as Vedas and Puranas. Foolish people say that the Puranas have no connection with the Vedas. However, the Puranas are supplementary explanations of the Vedas intended for different types of men. All men are not equal. There are men who are conducted by the mode of goodness, others who are under the mode of passion, and others who are under the mode of ignorance. The Puranas are so divided that any class of men can take advantage of them and gradually regain their lost position and get out of the hard struggle for existence. Śrīla Sūta Gosvāmī shows the way of chanting the Puranas. This may be followed by persons who aspire to be the preachers of the Vedic literatures and the Puranas. Srimad Bhagavatam is the spotless Purana, and it is specially meant for them who desire to get out of the material entanglement permanently. Yes. So, the purport is again the glory to Srimad Bhagavatam, explaining why Bhagavatam is so important and why it is for us too important to get out of this material existence once and for all. We should not get entangled, to the other material things or material stuff. We should just seek, shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam, shelter of Srila Gurudev, shelter of Srila Prabhupada, shelter of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, shelter of Sri Radha Ras Bihari Ji, shelter of Jagannath Ji, Hare Krishna, shelter of Nrsimhadev, to get out of this mental existence once and for all, and we should never get into this again and again. Even if we get, we should, get a birth in Dham, Sridham Vrindavan, Sridham Puri, or Navadip Dham. Other than that, we should not get even a birth. Is what I suggest. There's one famous line by one devotee of Krishna Lord in Dham, which I'm forgetting. He was like, if I get a birth as a stone, please make me, like Charan Raj of Giriraj Govardhan. If I get a birth as a fish, I may get a fish who lives under the Yamuna Maharani. If I get a birth as a tree, I should get a birth. I should like rebirth. Basically, he's talking about. If I should get a birth as a tree, in a tree yoni, I should get a should be a tree near Mahavan or Keshi Ghat, I guess. And if I should get if I'm getting a rebirth as a human, please make me a Gop Sakha. He's just inquiring Krishna that please, do me all these favors. If I get a birth as a animal, please make me a cow, like where Sri Hari, Sri himself, take me for the Gaucharan, and like he barefoots walks behind us after we go for Gaucharan. And if I get he was just explaining ki if I get a birth in this yoni, in that yoni, so please, get me a birth in the Srimad Vrindavan itself. And other than that, I should not get a birth itself. So it was like कि व्रजतज के मैं कहीं न जाऊँ, रसिक संतन के संग पाऊँ, something like that. व्रजतज के कहीं न जाऊँ. Something is like that, I forgot. Who was a Muslim devotee of Lord Krishna? Muslim devotee of Krishna. Ras Khan, I guess. Yes, Ras Khan. Ras Khan. It is very sweet if we read this. It is very sweet. It is in Raj language. So sweet. I should not get diverted by the our own thing. I'll just go to the text file right now, but it is very much great. I'll just read it afterwards. Yeah, and it's like we are on 5th shloka. Munaya sadhu prishto भवद्भिर्लोकमङ्गलं यत्कृत्य कृष्णसम्प्रश्नो येनात्मा सुप्रसिद्धति. Munaya, O sages, sadhu, this is relevant, prishta, questioned, aham, myself, bhavadbhi, by all of you, loka, the world, mangalam, welfare, yat, because krita, made Krishna, the personality of Godhead, samprashnaha, relevant question. Yena, by which Atma, self, suprasidati, completely pleased. Translation. O sages, I have been justly questioned by you. Your questions are worthy because they relate to Krishna, Lord Krishna, and so are of relevance to world's welfare. Only questions of this sort are capable of completely satisfying the self. Purport by His Divine Grace Swami Śrīla Prabhupada. Since it has been stated herein before that in the Bhagavatam the absolute truth is to be known. The questions of the sages of Naimisarana and are proper and just because they pertain to Krishna, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the absolute truth. In Bhagavad Gita 15.15, Personality of Godhead says that in all of the Vedas there is nothing but the urge of searching after Him, Lord Krishna. Thus, the questions that pertain to Krishna are the sum and substance of the all Vedic inquiries. The whole world is full of questions and answers. The birds, beasts, and men are all busy in the matter of perpetual questions and answers. In the morning, the birds in the nest become busy with questions and answers. And in the evening, also, the same birds come back and again and become busy with questions and answers. The human being, unless he is fast asleep at night, is busy with questions and answers. The businessmen in the market are busy with questions and answers. And so also the lawyers in the court and the students in the schools and colleges are busy with the questions and answers. The legislators in the parliament are also busy with question and answers. And the politicians and the press representatives are also busy with the questions and answers. Although they go on making such questions and answers for their whole lives, they are not at all satisfied. Satisfaction of the soul can only be obtained by questions and answers on the subject of Krishna only. Krishna is our most intimate master, friend, father or son and object of conjugal love. Forgetting Krishna, we have created so many objects of questions and answers, but none of them are able to give us complete satisfaction. All things but Krishna give temporary satisfaction only. So if you are to have complete satisfaction, we must take to the questions and answers about Krishna. We cannot live for a moment without being questioned or without giving answers. Because the Srimad Bhagavatam deals with questions and answers that are related to Krishna, we can derive the highest satisfaction only by reading and hearing this transcendental literature. One should learn the Srimad Bhagavatam and make an all-around solution to all problems pertaining to social, political or religious matters. Srimad Bhagavatam and Krishna are the sum total of all things. Now go to the next one. Savai pumsham parodharmo yedo bhakti radokshage ahetike aparatihata yahatma suprasidati saha, that where certainly pumsam for mankind, parah sublime, dharma occupation, yata by which, bhakti devotional service, adhokshaje unto the transcendence, abhayatuki causeless, aprihatiyata unbroken, yaya by which, atma the self, suprasidati completely satisfied. The supreme occupation, dharma for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendental Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. Purport. In this statement, Śrīla Sūta Gosvāmī answers the first question of the sages of Naimisarana. The sages asked him to summarize the whole range of revealed scriptures and present the most essential part so that fallen people or the people in the general might all easily take it up. The Vedas prescribe two different types of occupation for the human being. One is called the pravritti marga, pravritti marga or the path of sense enjoyment, and the other is called nivritti marga or the path of renunciation. The path of enjoyment is inferior and the path of sacrifice for the supreme cause is superior. The material existence of the living being is diseased condition of actual life. Actual life is spiritual existence or Brahma Bhuta existence, where life is eternal, blissful and full of knowledge. Material existence is temporary, illusory, and full of miseries. There is no happiness at all. There is just the futile attempt to get rid of the miseries, and temporary seasons of misery is falsely called happiness. Therefore, the path of progressive material enjoyment, which is temporary, miserable, and illusory, is inferior. But devotional service to the Supreme Lord, which leads one to eternal, blissful, and all cognizant life, is called the superior quality of occupation. This is sometimes polluted when mixed with the inferior quality. For example, adoption of devotional service for material gain is certainly an obstruction to the progressive path of renunciation. Renunciation or abnegation for ultimate good is certainly a better occupation and enjoyment in the disease condition of life. Such enjoyment only aggravates the symptoms of disease and increases its duration. Therefore, devotional service to the Lord must be pure in quality, i.e., without the least desire for material enjoyment. One should therefore accept the superior quality of occupation in the form of devotional service of the Lord without any tinge of unnecessary desire, fruitive actions, and the philosophical speculation. This alone can lead one to perpetual solace in his service. We have purposely denoted dharma as occupation because the root meaning of the word dharma is that which sustains one's existence. A living being's sustenance of existence is to coordinate his activities with his eternal relation with the Supreme Lord Krishna. Krishna is the central pivot of living beings, and he is the all attractive living entity or eternal form amongst all other living beings or eternal forms. Each and every living being has his eternal form in his spiritual existence, and Krishna is the eternal attraction for all of them. Krishna is the complete whole, Hare Krishna, and everything else is his part and parcel. The relation is one of the servant and the served. It is the transcendental and is the completely distinct from our experience in material existence. The relation of servant and the served is the most congenial form of intimacy. One can realize it as a devotional service progresses. Everyone should engage himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, even in the present conditional state of material existence. That will gradually give one the clue to the actual life and please him to complete satisfaction. So, in this one, Sūta Gosvāmī says, supreme occupation for all humanity, which is the one occupation that we have to do in any condition, is to attain loving devotional service unto the transcendental Lord, which is being done by doing the seva, doing chanting, doing the deity worship, seeking the mercy of Krishna, seeking mercy of Srila Gurudev, seeking mercy of Srila Prabhupada, reading his books, preaching. That is the only method, and that is the only supreme occupation for us to do in this human life. Is all this Sūta Gosvāmī explains in this world by answering the first question of the sages, which is this is the first question of the sages. To summarize the whole range of religious explain the present, the most essential part, which is the most essential part, is that we have to do our supreme occupation, which is dharma, for all humanity. वासुदेवे भगवती भक्ति योग प्रयोजिता जनयते अशुवैराग्यम ज्ञानम च याद अहेतुकम च यद अहेतुकम. Vasudeva, unto Krishna, Bhagavati, unto the personality of Godhead, Bhakti Yoga, contact of devotional service, Prayojita, being applied, Jnanati, does produce, Asu, very soon, Vairagyam, detachment, Jnanam, knowledge, Cha, and Yat, that which, Ahatikam, By rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. Those who consider devotional service to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna to be something like material emotional affairs may argue that in the revealed scriptures, sacrifice, charity, austerity, knowledge, mystic powers, and similar other processes of transcendental realization are recommended. According to them, bhakti or the devotional service of the Lord is meant for those who cannot perform the high grade activities. Generally, it is said that the bhakti cult is meant for the Shudras, Vaishyas, and the less intelligent women class. But that is not the actual fact. The bhakti cult is the topmost of all transcendental activities, and therefore it is simultaneously sublime and easy. It is sublime for the pure devotees who are serious about getting in contact with the Supreme Lord, and it is easy for the neophytes who are just on the threshold of the house of bhakti. To achieve the contact of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is a great science, and it is open for all living beings, including the Sudras, Vaishyas, women, and even those lower than the low-born Shudras. So, what to speak to the high-class men, like the qualified brāhmaṇas and the great self-realized kings? The other high-grade activities designated as sacrifice, charity, austerity, etc. are all corollary factors following the pure and scientific bhakti cult. The principles of knowledge and detachment are two important factors on the path of transcendental realization. The whole spiritual process leads to the perfect knowledge of everything, material and spiritual. And the results of such perfect knowledge are that one becomes detached from the material affection and becomes attached to spiritual activities. Becoming detached from material things does not mean becoming inert altogether. As men with a poor fund of knowledge think, Naish karma means not undertaking activities that will produce good or bad effects. Negation does not mean negation of the positive. Negation of the non-essentials does not mean negation of the essential. Similarly, detachment from material forms does not mean nullifying the positive form. The bhakti cult is meant for realization of the positive form. When the positive form is realized, the negative forms are automatically eliminated. Therefore, with the development of the bhakti cult, with the application of positive service to the positive form, one naturally becomes detached from inferior things and he becomes attached to superior things. Similarly, the bhakti cult, being the supermost occupation of the living being, leads him out of the material sense enjoyment. That is the sign of a pure devotee. He is not a fool, nor is he engaged in the inferior energies, nor does he have material values. This is not possible by dry reasoning. It actually happens by the grace of the Almighty. In conclusion, one who is a pure devotee has all the other good qualities, namely knowledge, detachment, etc. But one who has only knowledge or detachment, basically as a cross, which when you may only have one, is not necessarily well acquainted with the principles of the bhakti cult. Bhakti is the supermost occupation of the human being. This is very much good thing that is written over here, that like detachment doesn't mean that we are detaching from the positive things. Detachment means we are detaching from the inferior things that are becoming hurdles in our way to achieve Krishna. That is what is the main thing over here. So yeah, seen negation of the non-essential does not mean negation of the essential. Similarly, detachment from material forms does not mean nullifying the positive form. See? So we'll go to the next one. Dharma swanu ashtita pumsam vishva kesan kathasuya notpadi dati datim shram eva hi kevalam. Dharma, occupation, svanushtita, executed in terms of one's own position, pumsam, of humankind, vishvakshena, the personality of Godhead, plenary portion, kathasu, in the message of yah, what is, na, not, utpadayet, does produce, yadi, if, ratim, attraction, shrama, ashrama, useless labor, eva, only, he, certainly, kevalam, entirely. The occupational activities a man performs according to his own position are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the personality of Godhead. In a spiritual sense, this means that if your occupational activity are useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the personality of Godhead. So let's say if I am doing working as a software developer, and if those activities are not provoking me for the attraction towards Krishna or towards the message of Krishna, which is Srimad Bhagavatam itself, then that is the useless labor if we consider it in a material or even spiritual sense. It means ki yesterday only we discussed that all the activities which are material, we will not take it with us after we die, and even if we get the rebirth, we will get the rebirth as what were our past deeds, and so much so that Raskan also explained the same thing in the shloka that is Dohe that he has written. So if our occupational activities does not create a fire inside our heart towards separation of Krishna or Krishna Prem, that is a useless labor, as explained by Śrīla Sūta Gosvāmī in this shloka. There are different occupational activities in terms of man's different conception of life. To the gross materialist who cannot see anything beyond the gross material body, there is nothing beyond the senses. Therefore, his occupational activities. Sorry, I'm just drinking water right now. Sorry. There are different occupational activities in terms of man's different occupation conception of life. To the gross materialist who cannot see anything beyond the gross material body, there is nothing beyond the senses. Therefore, his occupational activities are limited to concentrated and extended selfishness. Which means if we are not directing our work which we are doing towards Krishna, then that occupational activities are limited to concentrated and extended selfishness. Concentrated and extended, which is concentrated selfishness and extended selfishness, which means we are doing it for us only. Those are not directed toward Krishna, is what is being explained over here. Concentrated selfishness enters around the personal body. This is generally seen amongst the lower animals. Extended selfishness is manifested in human society and centers around the family, society, community, nation, and world with a view to gross bodily comfort. Above these gross materialists are the mental speculators who hover aloft in the mental spheres, and their occupational duties involve making poetry and philosophy or propagating some is with the same aim of selfishness limited to the body and the mind. But above the body and the mind is the dormant spirit, soul, whose absence from the body makes the whole range of bodily and mental selfishness completely null and void. But less intelligent people have no information of the needs of the spirit soul. Because foolish people have no information of the soul and how it is beyond the purview of the body and mind, they are not satisfied in the performance of their occupational duties. The question of the satisfaction of the self is raised herein. The The self is beyond the gross body and subtle mind. He is the potent active principle of the body and mind. Without knowing the need of the dormant soul, one cannot be happy simply with emolument of the body and the mind. The body and the mind are but superfluous outer coverings of the spirit soul. The spirit soul's needs must be fulfilled. Simply by cleansing the cage of the bird, one does not satisfy the bird. One must actually know the needs of the bird himself. Great. The self is beyond the gross body and subtle mind. We have to get this thing in the mind ourselves. He is the potent active principle of the body and mind. The need of the spirit soul is that he wants to get out of the limited sphere of material bondage and fulfill his desire for complete freedom. He wants to get out of the covered walls of the greater universe. He wants to see the free light and the spirit. The complete freedom is achieved when he meets the complete spirit, personality of Godhead, which is there is a dormant affection for God within everyone. Spiritual existence is manifested through the gross body and mind in the form of perverted affection for gross and subtle matter. Therefore, we have to engage ourselves in the occupational engagements that will evoke our divine consciousness. This is possible only by hearing and chanting the divine activities of the Supreme Lord. And any occupational activity which does not help one to achieve attachment for hearing and chanting the transcendental message of the Godhead is said herein to be simply a waste of time. This is because other occupational duties, whatever is that they belong to, cannot give liberation to the soul. Even the activities of the salvationists are considered to be useless because of their failure to pick up the fountainhead of all liberties. The gross materialist can practically see that his material gain is limited only to time and space, either in this world or in the other. Even if he goes up to the Swarga Loka, he will find no permanent abode for his hankering soul. The hankering soul must be satisfied by the perfect scientific process of the perfect devotional service. Go to the next one. Dharmasya he apavargasya. Dharmasya he apavargasya. Nartho arthayo pakalpate. Narthasya dharma kantasya kamo labhaya hi samsamritya. Ismritaha. Dharmasya, occupational engagement, he certainly, apavargasya, ultimate liberation, not, arthaha and arthaya for material gain, upakalpate is meant for, neither, arthasya of material gain, dharma ekantasya, for one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service, kamaha, sense gratification, labhaya, attainment of, he exactly, smrita is described by the great sages. All occupational engagements are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. They should never be performed for material gain. Furthermore, according to sages, one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service should never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification. Purport by His Divine Grace Swami Śrīla Prabhupada ki Jai. We have already discussed that pure devotional service to the Lord is automatically followed by perfect knowledge and detachment from material existence. But there are others who consider that all kinds of different occupational engagements, including those of religion, are meant for material gain. The general tendency of any ordinary man in any part of the world is to gain some material profit in exchange for religious or any other occupational service. Even in the Vedic literatures, for all sort of religious performance, an allurement of material gain is offered. And most people are attracted by such allurements, or all sorts of religious performance are an allurement of material gain is offered. And most people are attracted by such allurements or blessings of religiosity. Why are such so-called men of religion allured by material gain? Because material gain can enable one to fulfill desires, which is in turn satisfies sense gratification. This cycle of occupational engagements includes so-called religiosity followed by material gain and material gain followed by fulfillment of desires. Sense gratification is the general way of for all sorts of fully occupied men. But in the statement of Sūta Gosvāmī, as per the verdict of Srimad Bhagavatam, this is nullified by the present shloka. One should not engage himself in any sort of occupational service for material gain only, nor should material gain be utilized for sense gratification. How material gain should be utilized is described as follows. Kamasya nindriya pratir labho jiveta yavata jivasya tattva jignasa jigyasa nato yasa cheya karma vya kamasya of desires, not indriya senses, pritya satisfaction, labha gain, jiveta self-preservation, yavata so much so, jivasya of the living being, tattva the absolute truth, jignasa inquiries, not artha and yah cha whoever else, karma bhi by occupational activities. Just a second. Translation. Life's desires should never be directed toward sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation. Since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth, nothing else should be the goal of one's works. Purport by His Divine Swami Śrīla Prabhupada. The completely bewildered material civilization is wrongly directed towards the fulfillment of desires in sense gratification. In such civilization, in all spheres of life, the ultimate end is sense gratification. In politics, social service, altruism, philanthropy, and ultimately in religion or even in salvation, the very same tint of sense gratification is ever increasingly predominant. In the political field, the leaders of men fight with one another to fulfill their personal sense gratification. The voters adore the so called leaders only when they promise sense gratification. As soon as the voters are dissatisfied in their own sense satisfaction, they dethrone the leaders. The leaders must always disappoint the voters by not satisfying their senses. The same is applicable in all other fields. No one is serious about the problems of life. Even those who are on the path of salvation desire to become one with the absolute truth and desire to commit spiritual suicide for sense gratification. But the Bhagavatam says that the one should not live for sense gratification. One should satisfy the senses only in so much as required for self preservation, and not for sense gratification. Because the body is made of senses, which also require a certain amount of satisfaction. There are regulative directions for satisfaction of such senses. But the senses are not meant for unrestricted enjoyment. For example, marriage or the combination of a man with a woman is necessary for progeny, but it is not meant for sense enjoyment. In the absence of voluntary restraint, there is propaganda for family planning, but foolish men do not know that family planning is automatically executed as soon as there is search after the absolute truth. Seekers of the absolute truth are never allured by unnecessary engagements in sense gratification, because the serious students seeking the absolute truth are always overwhelmed with the work of researching the truth in every sphere of life. Therefore, the ultimate end must be seeking after the absolute truth, and that sort of engagement will make one happy because he will be less engaged in varieties of sense gratification. And what that absolute truth is, it is explained as follows. We'll go to the next one. Vedanti Vedant Vadanti Tattvavidas Tattvam Yajjananam Yad Advayam Yajjnana Madvayam Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavaniti Shabdate. Vadanti, they say, Tat, that, Tattvavida, the learned souls, Tattvam, the absolute truth, Yat, which, Jnanam, knowledge, Advayam, non-dual, Brahmaiti, known as Brahman, Paramatmaiti, known as Paramatma, Bhagavaniti, known as Bhagwan, Shabdayate, it is so sounded. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma or Bhagwan. I'll go to the previous one, just this one. Rajas should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation. A human being is meant for inquiring about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's work. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma or Bhagwan. Sorry. The absolute truth is both subject and object, and there is no qualitative difference there. Therefore, Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagwan are qualitatively one and the same. The same substance is realized as impersonal Brahman by the students of the Upanishads, as localized Paramatma by the Hiranyagarbhas or the yogis, and as Bhagwan by the devotees. In other words, Bhagwan or the personality of Godhead is the last word of the absolute truth. Paramatma is the partial representation of the personality of the Godhead, and impersonal Brahman is the glowing effulgence of the personality of Godhead. As the sun rays are to the sun god, less intelligent students of either of the above schools sometimes argue in favor of their own respective realization. But those who are perfect seers of the absolute truth know well that the above three features of the one absolute truth are different perspective views seen from the different angles of the vision. As it is explained in the first shloka of the first chapter of the Bhagavatam, the supreme truth is self-sufficient, cognizant and free from all the illusion of relativity. In the relative world, the knower is different from the known. But in the absolute truth, both the knower and the known are one and the same thing. In the relative world, the knower is the living spirit or superior energy, whereas the known is inert matter of inferior energy. Therefore, there is a duality of inferior and superior energy. Whereas in the absolute realm, both the knower and the known are of the same superior energy. There are three kinds of energies of the supreme energetic. There is no difference between the energy and the energetic, but there is a difference of quality of energies. The absolute realm and the living entities are of the same superior energy, but the material world is inferior energy. The living being in contact with the inferior energy is illusioned, thinking he belongs to the inferior energy. Therefore, there is a sense of relativity in the material world. In the absolute, there is no such sense of difference between the knower and the known, and therefore everything there is absolute. Tach तच श्रद्धांधाना मुनयो ज्ञान वैराग्य युक्तया पश्यन्त्यात्मनि चात्मनं चात्मानं भक्त्या श्रुत गृहतया तत that श्रद्धाधानः seriously inquisitive, munaya sages, jnana knowledge, vairagya detachment, yuktaya well equipped with, pashyanti see, atmani within themselves, cha and atmanam the paramatma, bhaktaya in devotional service, shruta the Vedas, grihitaya well received. The seriously inquisitive student or sage, well equipped with the knowledge and detachment, realizes that absolute truth by rendering devotional service in terms of what he has heard from the Vedanta Shruti. But the absolute truth is realized in full by the process of devotional service to the Lord, Vyāsadeva, or the personality of Godhead, who is full-fledged absolute truth. Brahman is his transcendental bodily effulgence, and the Paramatma is his partial representation. As such, Brahman or Paramatma realization of the absolute truth is but a partial realization. There are four different types of human beings: the karmis, the jnanis, and the yogis, and the devotees. The karmis are materialistic, whereas the other three are transcendental. The first class transcendentalists are the devotees who have realized the Supreme Person. The second class transcendentalists are those who have partially realized the plenary portion of the Absolute Person. And the third class transcendentalists are those who have barely realized the spiritual focus of the Absolute Person. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita and the other Vedic literature, the Supreme Person is realized by the devotional service, which is backed by full knowledge and detachment from material association. We have already discussed that point that devotional service is followed by knowledge and detachment from material association. As Brahman and Paramatma realization are imperfect realization of the absolute truth, so the means of realizing Brahman and Paramatma, i.e. the paths of Jnana and Yoga, are also imperfect means of realizing the absolute truth. Devotional service, which is based on the foreground of the full knowledge, combined with detachment from material association and which is fixed by the oral reception of the Vedanta Shruti, is the only perfect method by which the seriously inquisitive student can realize the absolute truth. Devotional service is not, therefore, meant for the less intelligent class of the transcendentalists. There are three classes of devotees, namely first, second, and third class. The third class devotees are the neophytes who have no knowledge and are not detached from material association but who are simply attracted by the preliminary process of worshipping the deity in the temple are called material devotees. Material devotees are more attached to the material benefit than transcendental profit. Therefore, one has to make definite progress from the position of material devotional service to the second class devotional position. In the second class position, the devotee can see four principles in the devotional line, namely the personality of Godhead, his devotees, the ignorant and the envious. One has to raise himself at least to the stage of a second class devotee and thus become eligible to know the absolute truth. A third class devotee therefore has to receive the instruction of devotional service from the authoritative sources of Bhagavad. Bhagavat. The number one Bhagavat is the established personality of devotee, and the other Bhagavatam is the message of Godhead. The third class devotee therefore has to go to the personality of devotee in order to learn the instruction of the devotional service, such as such a personality of a devotee is not a professional man who learns his livelihood by the business of Bhagavatam. Such a devotee must be representative of Śukadeva Gosvāmī like Sūta Gosvāmī, and must preach the cult of devotional service for all around benefit of all people. A neophyte devotee has very little taste for hearing from the authorities. Such a neophyte devotee makes a show of hearing from the professional man to satisfy his senses. This sort of hearing and chanting has spoiled the whole thing. One should be very careful about the faulty process. The holy messages of the Godhead, as included in the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, are undoubtedly transcendental subjects. But even though they are so, such transcendental matters are not to be received from the professional man who spoils them as the serpent spoils milk simply by the touch of his tongue. A sincere devotee must therefore be prepared to hear the Vedic literature like the Upanishads, Vedanta, and other literatures left by the previous authorities or Goswamis for the benefit of his progress. Without hearing such literatures, one cannot make actual progress. And without hearing and following their instructions, the show of devotional service becomes worthless and therefore a sort of disturbance in the path of devotional service. Unless, therefore, devotional service is established on the principles of Shruti, Smriti, Purana, or Pancharatra authorities, the make show of devotional service should at once be rejected. An authorized devotee should never be recognized as a pure devotee. By assimilation of such messages from the Vedic literatures, one can see the all-pervading localized aspect of the personality of the Godhead within his own self constantly. This is called Samadhi. Ata Pambir Sreshta Varnashrama Vibhagashah Sanushthitasya Dharmasya Samasiddhir Hari Tatoshanam. Ataha, so Pumbir, by the human being, Dvij Sreshta, O best among the twice born, Varnashrama, the institution of the four castes and four orders of life. Vibhagashaha, by the division of Swanushthitasya, of one's own prescribed duties. Dharmasya, occupational. Samsiddhi, the highest perfection. Hari, the personality of Godhead. Toshanam, pleasing. O best among the twice born. It is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging the duties prescribed for one's own occupation according to caste divisions and the orders of life is to please the personality of Godhead. Human society all over the world is divided into the four castes and four orders of life. The four castes are the intelligent caste, the martial caste, and the productive caste, and the laborer caste. These castes are well classified in terms of one's work and qualification and not by birth. Then again, there are four orders of life, namely the student life, the householder's life, the retired, and the devotional life. In the best interest of human society, there must be such divisions of the life. Otherwise, no social institution can grow in a healthy state. And each and every one of the above mentioned divisions of the life, the aim must be to please the supreme authority of the personality of Godhead. This institutional function of human society is known as the system of Varnashrama Dharma, which is quite natural for the civilized life. The Varnashram institution is constructed to enable one to realize the absolute truth. It is not for artificial domination of one division or over another. When the aim of life, that is, realization of the absolute truth, is missed by too much attachment of indriya priti or sense gratification, Indra Tripti, I guess it is basically known as Tripti. As already discussed in before, the institution of the Varnashrama is utilized by selfish men to pose an artificial predominance over the weaker section. In the Kali Yuga or in the age of coral, the artificial predominance is already current, but the saner section of the people know it well that the divisions of the caste and the orders of life are meant for smooth social intercourse and high thinking self realization and not for any other purpose. Here in the statement of Bhagavatam is that the highest aim of life or the highest perfection of the institution of the Varnashram Dharma is to cooperate jointly for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 4:13. तस्मादेकेन मानस भगवान सत्वतं पतीय श्रोतो व्याकृति तत्तव्यश्च ध्येय पूज्यश्च नित्यदा. Tasmad, therefore, ekena, by one manasa, attention of the mind, Bhagwan, the personality of Godhead, Sattvatam, of the devotees, protector, Shrotovya, is to be heard, Krititavya, to be glorified, Cha, and Dheya, to be remembered, Pujya, to be worshipped, Cha, and Nityada, constantly. Therefore, translation. Therefore, with one pointed attention, one should constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead who is the protector of the devotees. If realization of the absolute truth is the ultimate aim of life, it must be carried out by all means. In any one of the above mentioned castes and orders of the life, the four processes, namely glorifying, hearing, remembering, and worshipping, are general occupations. Without these principles of life, no one can exist. Activities of the living being involve engagements in these four different principles of life, especially in modern society. All activities are more or less dependent on hearing and glorifying. Any man from any social status becomes a well-known man in human society within a very short time if he is simply glorified truly or falsely in the daily newspapers. Sometimes political leaders of a particular party are also advertised by newspaper propaganda, and by such a method of glorification, an insignificant man becomes an important man within no time. But such propaganda by false glorification of an unqualified person cannot bring about any good, either for the particular man or for the society. There may be some temporary reactions to such propaganda, but there are no permanent effects. Therefore, such activities are a waste of time. The actual object of glorification is the Supreme Personality of Godhead who has created everything manifested before us. We have broadly discussed this fact from the beginning of the Janmade Asya Shloka of this Bhagavatam, which is the first shloka. Tendency to glorify others or hear others must be turned to the real object of glorification, the Supreme Being, and that will bring happiness. Yad anudhasyana yuktaha ध्यासिना युक्तः कर्मग्रन्थि निबद्धनं छिदन्ति कोविदास्तस्य को न कुर्यात् कथारतिं yat which anudhya remembrance asina sword yuktah being equipped with karma reactionary work granthi not nibandhanam internet Chindanti cut Kovidah intelligent tasya his kah who na not kuryat shall do katha messages ratim attention. Translation. With sword in hand, intelligent men can cut through the binding knots of reactionary work, by remembering the personality of Godhead, therefore, who will not pay attention to his message? The contact of the spiritual spark with material elements creates a knot which must be cut if one wants to be liberated from the actions of the reactions of fruitive work. Liberation means freedom from the cycle of reactionary work. This liberation automatically follows for one who constantly remembers the transcendental pastimes of the personality of the Godhead. This is because all the activities of the Supreme Lord His lila are transcendental to the modes of the material energy. They are all attractive spiritual activities, and therefore constant association with the spiritual activities of the Supreme Lord gradually spiritualizes the conditioned soul and ultimately serves the knot of material bondage. Severs, not serves, severs basically cuts the material bondage, not a material bondage. Liberation from material bondage is therefore a byproduct of devotional service. Attainment of spiritual knowledge is not sufficient to ensure liberation. Such knowledge must be overcoated with devotional service so that ultimately the devotional service alone predominates. Then liberation is made possible. Even the reactionary work of the fruity workers can lead one to liberation when it is overcoated with devotional service. Karma overcoated with devotional service is called karma yoga. Similarly, empirical knowledge overcoated with devotional service is called jnana yoga. But pure bhakti yoga is independent of such karma and jnana because it alone cannot only endow one with liberation from conditional life but also award one of the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Therefore, any sensible man who is above the average man with the poor fund of knowledge must constantly remember the personality of Godhead by hearing about him, by glorifying him, by remembering him, and by worshipping him, always without cessation. That is the perfect way of devotional service. The Goswamis of the Vrindavan, who were authorized by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to preach the Bhakti cult, rigidly followed this rule and made immense literatures of transcendental science for our benefit. They have chalked out ways for all key classes of men in terms of the different castes and orders of the life in pursuance of the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam and similar other authoritative scriptures. शुश्रूषो शब्द धनस्य वासुदेव कथा रुचिय श्यान महत सेवया विप्र पुण्यतीर्थ निषेवणात् शुश्रूषो शुश्रूषो one who is engaged in hearing Shraddha with care and attention Vasudeva in respect of Vasudeva. Katha, the message, Ruchiya, affinity, Shyat is made possible Mahat Sevaya by service rendered to pure devotees. Vipraha, twice born. Dvija and Vipraha. Punya Tirtha, those who are cleansed of all vice. Nishevana, by service, translation. Twice born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the message of Vasudeva. Purport: the conditioned life of a living being is caused by his revolting against the Lord. There are men called devas or godly living beings, and there are men called asuras or demons who are against the authority of the Supreme Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, 16th chapter, a vivid description of the asuras is given in which it is said that the asuras are put into lower and lower states of ignorance life after life and so sink to the lower animal forms and have no information of the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead. These asuras are gradually rectified to God consciousness by the mercy of the Lord's liberated servitors in different countries according to the supreme will. Such devotees of God are very confidential associates of the Lord, and when they come to save human society from the dangers of godlessness, they are known as the powerful incarnations of the Lord, as sons of the Lord, as servants of the Lord, or as associates of the Lord. But none of them falsely claim to be God themselves. This is a blasphemy declared by the Asuras, and the demoniac followers of such Asuras also accept pretenders as God or his incarnation. In the revealed scriptures, there is a definite information of the incarnation of the God. No one should be accepted as God or an incarnation of God unless he is confirmed by the revealed scriptures. The servants of the God are to be respected as God by the devotees who actually want to go back to Godhead. Such servants of God are called Mahatmas or tirthas, and they preach according to particular name and time and place. The servants of God urge people to become devotees of the Lord. They never tolerate being called God. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was God himself according to the indication of the revealed scriptures, but he played the part of devotee. People who knew him to be the God addressed him as a God, but he used to block his ears with his hands and chant the name of Lord Vishnu. He strongly protested against being called God, although undoubtedly he was God himself. The Lord behaves so to warn us against unscrupulous men who take pleasure in being addressed as God. The servants of God come to propagate God consciousness, and intelligent people should cooperate with them in every respect. By serving the servant of the God, one can please God more than by directly serving the Lord. The Lord is more pleased when he sees that his servants are properly respected, because such servants risk everything for the service of the Lord and so are very dear to the Lord. The Lord declared in the Bhagavad Gita 18:169 that no one is dearer to him than one who risks everything to preach his glory. By serving the servants of the Lord, one gradually gets the quality of such servants, and thus one becomes qualified to hear the glories of the Lord. The eagerness to hear about God is the first qualification of devotee eligible for entering the kingdom of the God. Shanavatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridayanta Ashtohe Abdharani Vidunoti Shuhat Satam. Srinavatam, those who have developed the urge to hear the message of Swakatha, his own words, Krishna, the personality of Godhead, Punya, virtues, Shravana, hearing, Kirtana, chanting, Hridayantahastha, within one's heart, he certainly, Abdharani, desire to enjoy matter, Vidunoti, cleanses, Suhit, benefactor, Satam, of the truthful, Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is Paramatma, in everyone's heart, super soul, in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Messages of the personality of the Godhead, Sri Krishna, are not different from him. Whenever therefore offenseless hearing and glorification of the God are undertaken, it is to be understood that Lord Krishna is present there in the form of transcendental sound, which is as powerful as the Lord personally. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Sikshastaka declares clearly that the holy name of the Lord has all potencies of the Lord, and that he has endowed his innumerable names with the same potency. There is no rigid fixture of time, and anyone can chant the holy name with the attention and reverence at his convenience. The Lord is so kind to us that he can be present before us personally in the form of transcendental sound, but unfortunately we have no taste for hearing and glorifying the Lord's names and activities. We have already discussed developing a taste for hearing and chanting the holy sound. It is done through the medium of service to the pure devotee of the Lord. The Lord is reciprocally respondent to his devotees. When he sees that a devotee is completely sincere in getting admittance to the transcendental service of the Lord and has thus become eager to hear about him, the Lord acts from within the devotee in such a way that the devotee may easily go back to him. The Lord is more anxious to take us back into his kingdom than we can desire. Most of us do not desire at all to go back to Godhead. Only a very few men want to go back to Godhead, but anyone who desires to go back to Godhead, Sri Krishna helps in all respects. One cannot enter into the kingdom of God unless one is perfectly cleared of all sins. The material sins are products of our desires to lord it over material nature. It is very difficult to get rid of such desires. Women and wealth are very difficult problems for the devotees making progress on the path back to Godhead. Many stalwarts in the devotional line fell victim to these allurements and thus retreated from the path of liberation. But when one is held by the Lord himself, the whole process becomes as easy as anything by the divine grace of the Lord. To become restless in the contact of women and wealth is not an astonishment, because every living being is associated with such things from remote time, practically immemorial. and it takes time to recover from this foreign nature. But if one is engaged in hearing the glories of the Lord, gradually he realizes his real position. By the grace of the God, such a devotee gets sufficient strength to defend himself from the state of disturbances, and gradually all disturbing elements are eliminated from his mind. नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेव्या भगवते उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी. Nashta, destroyed, prayesu, almost to nil, abhadresu or abhadreshu, all that is inauspicious, nityam, regularly, sorry, bhagavata, Srimad Bhagavatam, or the pure devotee, sevaya, by serving Bhagavati unto the personality of Godhead, uttama, transcendental, shloke, prayers, bhakti, loving service, bhavati, comes into being, nashtiki, irrevocable, by regular attendance in classes of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Purport. Here is a remedy for eliminating all inauspicious things within the heart, which are considered to be obstacles in the path of self-realization. The remedy is the association of the Bhagavatas. There are two types of Bhagavatas, namely the book Bhagavat and the devotee Bhagavat. Both the Bhagavatas are competent remedies, and both of them or either of them can be good enough to eliminate the obstacles. Just a second. Both the Bhagavatas are competent remedies, and both of them are, or neither of, or either of them can be good enough to eliminate the obstacles. A devotee Bhagavat is as good as the book Bhagavat, because the devotee Bhagavat leads his life in terms of the book Bhagavat, and the book Bhagavat is the full of information about the personality of Godhead and his pure devotees, who are also Bhagavatas. Bhagavata book and person are identical. The devotee Bhagavat is a direct representative of Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. So by pleasing the devotee Bhagavat, one can receive the benefit of book Bhagavat. Human reason fails to understand how by serving the devotee Bhagavat or the book Bhagavat one gets gradual promotion on the path of devotion. But actually these are facts explained by Śrīla Narada Dev, who happened to be maid servant's son in his previous life. The maid servant was engaged in the menial service of the sages, and thus he also came into contact with them, and simply by associating with them and accepting the remnants of foodstuffs left by the sages, the son of the maid servants got the chance to become the great devotee and personality Śrīla Narada Muni basically. These are the miraculous effects of the association of the Bhagavatas. And to understand these effects practically, it should be noted that by such sincere association of the Bhagavatas, one is sure to receive transcendental knowledge very easily, with the result that he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. The more progress is made in devotional service under the guidance of the Bhagavatas, the more one becomes fixed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The messages of the book Bhagavat therefore have to be received from the devotee Bhagavat, and the combination of these two Bhagavatas will help the neophyte devotee to make progress and on and on. The next one. Tadrajastamo bhava kamalobhadayasche cheta iterana vidham sthitham sattve pasidati. Tada, at that time, Rajaha, in the mode of passion, Tamaha, the mode of ignorance, Bhavaha, situation, Kama, lust and desire, Lobha, hankering, Adaya, others, Cha, and Ye, whatever they are, Cheta, the mind, Ita, by these, Anvidham, without being affected, Sthitam, being fixed, Sattve, in the mode of goodness, Prasidati, thus becomes fully satisfied. Translation. As soon as irrevocable living service is established in the heart, The efforts of nature's modes of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire, and hankering, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness and he becomes completely happy. Perfect. The living being in his normal constitutional position is fully satisfied in the spiritual bliss. Thus, this state of existence is called Brahma Bhuta or Atmananda, Atma Ananda, or the state of self satisfaction. This self satisfaction is not like the satisfaction of the inactive fool. The inactive fool is in the state of the foolish ignorance, whereas the self satisfied Atmanandi is transcendental to the material state of existence. This stage of perfection is attained as soon as one is fixed in the irrevocable devotional service. Devotional service is not inactivity, but the unalloyed activity of the soul. The soul's activity becomes adulterated in contact with matter, and as such, the diseased activities are expressed in the form of lust, desire, hankering, inactivity, foolishness, and sleep. The effect of devotional service becomes manifest by a complete elimination of these effects of passion and ignorance. The devotee is fixed at once in the mode of goodness and he makes further progress to rise to the position of Vyāsadeva or the state of unmixed sattva or Shuddha sattva. Only in the Shuddha sattva state one can always see Krishna face to face by dint of pure affection for the Lord. The devotee is always in the mode of unalloyed goodness. Therefore, he harms no one. But the non-devotee, however educated he may be, is always harmful. A devotee is neither foolish nor passionate. The harmful, foolish, and the passionate one cannot be devotees of the Lord. However, they may advertise themselves as devotee by outward dress. A devotee is always qualified with all the good qualities of the God. Quantitatively, and qualifications may be different, but qualitatively, both the Lord and his devotees are one and the same. Hare Krishna. This is the last shloka for today. Evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogata bhagavad tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. Evam, thus, prasanna, enlivened, enlivened manasaha of the mind, Bhagavad Bhakti, the devotional service of the Lord, Yogataha, by contact of Bhagavat, regarding the personality of Godhead, Tattva, knowledge, Vijnanam, scientific, Mukta, liberated, Sangasya, of the association, Jayate, becomes effective. Thus, established in the mode of unalloyed goodness, the man whose mind has been enlivened by contact with devotional service to the Lord gains positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all materialist association. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita 7.3, it is said that out of many thousands of ordinary men, one fortunate man endeavors for perfection in life. Mostly men are conducted by the modes of passion and ignorance, and thus they are engaged always in lust, desire, hankerings, ignorance, and sleep. Out of many such man-like animals, there is actually a man who knows the responsibility of human life and thus tries to make perfect life by following the prescribed duties. And out of many thousands of such persons who have thus attained success in human life, one may know scientifically about the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. In the same Bhagavad Gita 18.55, it is also said that scientific knowledge of Sri Krishna is understood only by the process of devotional service, Bhakti Yoga. The very same thing is confirmed here in the above words. No ordinary man or even one who has attained success in human life can know scientifically or perfectly the personality of Godhead. Perfection of human life is attained when one can understand that he is not the product of matter, but is in fact spirit. And as soon as one understands that he has nothing to do with the matter, he at once ceases his material hankerings and becomes enlivened as a spiritual being. This attainment of success is possible when one is above the modes of passion and ignorance, or in the other words, when one is actually a brāhmana by qualification. A brāhmana is the symbol of sattva guna or the mode of goodness, and others who are not in the mode of goodness are either kshatriyas, vaishyas, shudras, or less than the shudras. The Brahmanical stage is the highest stage of the human life because of its good qualities. So one cannot be a devotee unless one at least qualifies as a Brahmana. The devotee is already a Brahmana by action, but that is not the end of it. As referred to above, such a Brahmana has to become a Vaishnava in fact to be actually in the transcendental stage. A pure Vaishnava is liberated soul and a transcendental even to the position of a Brahmana. In the material stage, even a Brahmana is also a conditioned soul because although in the Brahmanical stage the conception of Brahman or transcendence is realized scientific knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. The science of personality of Godhead is the subject matter for study by the postgraduate students in the spiritual line. Foolish men or men with a poor fund of knowledge do not understand the Supreme Lord and they interpret Krishna according to their respective whims. The fact is, however, that one cannot understand the science of the personality of Godhead unless one is freed from the contamination of the material modes, even up to the stage of Brahmana. When a qualified Brahman actually becomes a Vaishnava in the enlightened state of liberation, he can know what is actually the personality of Godhead. So, till 20th shloka of second chapter of first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Śrīla Sūta Gosvāmī answers the first questions, which is the essence of all the Vedas and Puranas that he has studied, all got from his Gurudev. So he's just explained all the things that we have to do in order to achieve the divinity and divine service towards the Lord himself. So he just see in the text 5, he's just saying ki all your questions are related to Lord Krishna and so are relevant to the world's welfare. Same he has explained ki what is the supreme occupation of human life, which is that he's explaining from his learning, and he just explained that who is Krishna and what is detachment, what exactly is detachment. It's not like we are just gonna leave the everything and go into the one and do the seva or like meditation and stuff, but it's rather than different. It's like even being there into the material existence. We are not in the material existence by just being in the spiritual existence, by just chanting, hearing and thinking about Krishna. Therefore, with one pointed attention, one should constantly hear, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of God, who is protector of the devotees. This is what is explained. This is the question, or maybe what do we call, very specific, but this is generalized, but this is very specific that we have to do throughout the life. So he has then explained who we have to worship. Then he says Sri Krishna, and not like me, like who do the worshipping day after day after day, or like I'm not being consistent. So you have to be consistent daily, constantly. Yeah, there one word was for constantly, which I am not remembering. It was a very good word. So you just have to without any hankerings, lust and desire, we have to do the irrevocable loving service to Krishna, our heart itself. These the 20 shlokas that has been said by Sūta Gosvāmī to the first questions by the sages, and then we'll continue after 21. So very good, trust me, this is very good. Questions and answers are very good. So here we end till 20th. Thank you, Hare Krishna. We'll just stop by 20th. We have done 20th till today. So yeah, Hare Krishna.